Well, good afternoon. It's good to be with you all again. Welcome to the School for Christian Faith and Leadership at the Diocese of Washington. I'm the Reverend Emily Snowden, Project Coordinator for the school and your digital host for today. We're so glad that you're here. Today's another wonderful opportunity for us to learn from our Missioner for Revitalization, the Reverend Todd Thomas, as he discusses welcoming and connecting ministries with you all, one of the key signs of parish vitality. We welcome you to type your name and where you are from. Again, we're so glad that you're here. We hope that you enjoy your lunch if you're eating, your tea or coffee if you're drinking. And now I'll turn it over to the Reverend Todd Thomas.
Thank you, Reverend Emily, and welcome back, everybody. It is good to be together. I was mentioning earlier, I feel really energized by our times together. It's been a lot. This is now our 5th week in a row gathering together on Tuesday for an hour. So thank you so much for your dedication, for your energy, for your input, and for being here. It's good to see your faces, and it's good to be together. Today, we're gathering around the vital sign, welcoming and connecting ministries. And I wanted to start us off just with a little bit of introductory idea. Here are some of the things that we have written about in official documents about this vital sign. We have said that a healthy parish is intentional and strategic about welcoming guests. It is prepared to invite and provide next step connections. Our church family is a place to belong. Guests are valued. And we have said that welcoming ministries are dependent on the leadership of active lay members and lay leaders. So we're gathering together to talk about the way that we welcome and connect people. In other words, we all have guests. Guests come through at different times and for different reasons. But what are we doing to really make them feel at home and to make them feel connected so that we can work on retention, so that we become friends, so that we have the opportunity to do some journey with them and come alongside them in life? As I was preparing for today, we don't have any special guests for today. No pre-recorded interviews or panelists or guest speakers. We're going to spend some time thinking about and reflecting on our parishes, reflecting about where we're at and where we want to go. But as I was preparing for today, I was looking through some of my notes on different things that Henry Nouwen, the late, great Father Henry Nouwen, wrote and talked about and did. And he made a point to warn us from our welcoming ministries and our ministries in general from becoming too professionalized. In other words, we lose some of the humility, we lose some of the hospitality, we lose some of the genuineness of the contact with one another, instead going for like a program or something like that. Speaking about that and about friendship, he said that friendship is being with the other in joy and sorrow, even when we cannot increase the joy or decrease the sorrow. It is a unity of souls that gives nobility and sincerity to love. Friendship makes all of life shine brightly. So I think what he was getting at there was to remember that balance. And we need to hold it tightly ourselves, that as we're thinking about welcoming and connecting with people, we're not just looking for another program, another tool, and we're not wanting to feed anybody into a machine, but we're actually wanting to keep a balance of that preparation and that strategic thought that goes into the opportunity to create a new friend, the opportunity to call someone friend. I believe that was just this past week or the last couple of weeks, that was our gospel reading, right? From John's gospel, that Jesus has chosen to call us friends because we're not just following orders and doing things, but we're actually being friends with one another. So I'd like to open us with a prayer. This is also a prayer from Henry Nouwen. And this is one of the reflections that Henry Nouwen did on something he read from Vincent van Gogh and then wrote a prayer. And so we're going to open with those words. The Lord be with you.
Also to you.
Dear Lord, today I thought of the words of Vincent van Gogh, quote, "It is true there is an ebb and flow, but the sea remains the sea. You are the sea. Although I experience many ups and downs in my emotions and often feel great shifts and changes in my inner life, you remain the same. Your sameness is not the sameness of a rock, but the sameness of a faithful lover. Out of your love, I came to life. By your love, I am sustained. And to your love, I am always called back. There are days of sadness and days of joy. There are feelings of guilt and feelings of gratitude. There are moments of failure and moments of success, but all of them are embraced by your unwavering love. O Lord, sea of love and goodness, let me not fear too much the storms and winds of my daily life, and let me know there is an ebb and flow, but the sea remains the sea. Amen. Now we're going to go into our first round of breakout rooms just to get together momentarily and spend some time in reflection and sharing and kind of get into our habit of talking. So we will go with 4 groups, Emily, and let everybody divide out. And here is your breakout prompt. We're going to take about 10 minutes, and that should be about 3 minutes each for each of you in your group to share this prompt. What makes you feel welcome and connected with your church family? And second, is there a person who really made that happen or makes that happen for you? I'm going to drop that in chat so you can see it there. Did that go out to everyone? It did. So what makes you feel welcome and connected with your church family? And is there a person who really made that happen for you? When you see the group invite, just go ahead and click, and we'll see you back here in 10 minutes. Are we all back? Fantastic. Well, welcome back, everybody. I hope it was a good time in your breakout rooms together. I did want to ask, would anybody, I would love to hear from a couple few people. Would anybody like to share what makes you feel connected and welcome at your church? And if there was somebody who really made that happen or makes that happen? I can see everybody. If you want to raise your hand or just unmute and share. All right, so let's go with Heidi first, and then blue and white plaid. I don't have your name on the screen, so I apologize for that. We'll go Heidi, and then we'll go to you.
We talked a lot about people feeling very welcome right away because people smiled at them, greeted them. If they attended more than once, people remembered that they'd been there before. Readers were particularly important, and the priest. One person mentioned people taking her to coffee hour, not just encouraging her to go, but a personal connection. We also talked about the importance of connecting one-on-one, so not just an announcement about opportunities, but somebody approaching you personally and saying, would you be interested in doing this or that?
Yeah. Great. Thank you. Linnell, your name is back.
I don't know what happened to my name.
It's all right.
Well, what I said in our group, and I'm going to actually share that, but I have something additional to share. What I said in our group was I was at St. Mark's for a decade, then moved away, then came back. And it was walking in the church when I came back, the old friends, many of which who I kept in touch with, and of course with Facebook, it's so easy. But it was just the love and in their eyes when they saw us, and just that warm church family feeling. My husband and I moved back to DC, and we really, at that point, hadn't even bought a house back on Capitol Hill yet. And we really had it wasn't that we're going back to St. Mark's. We just came one Sunday, and it was just so beautiful. But I will have to say, back when I was here before and younger, right at the early part of our marriage, our first child was born. It was a gentleman who's a lovely friend who's gone now, an older man. It was him saying my name out loud. I came to the church and I was there for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks. We had the baby baptized there, but it's a very busy place. And I came in one day and Tom said, Linnell, you're here. And that was it.
Awesome. Wow. Thank you. Would anybody else like to share? What makes you feel connected and welcome in your church family?
I wanted to share something that our group talked about quite a bit, and that was serving the needs of people as they arrive. Because several of us, nursery was a very important part of starting at a church, becoming connected with it, having a place where our children could be taken care of while we worshiped was critical. Having people around available to jump the car when the lights got left on, those kinds of connections that reach out to us at a very physical level, but that really make a welcoming atmosphere.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Yeah, those are really all the things you shared are fantastic. And we don't always stop and think about it though, because we've been around our church parishes for a while. Maybe it's been a time since we were new. Maybe it's been some time since we walked into somewhere cold or only knew one or two people there, to really think about it. We have been talking about some of the vital signs a little more practically and hands-on. And this week we're actually stepping back a little bit to talk about a little bit about what is behind the vital sign, what's behind welcoming and connecting ministry. And for us as Episcopal Christians, it really comes down to the phrase that we use, that we have been using, which is becoming beloved community. I think that is huge. And especially coming out of reading some things like Henry Nouwen, who talks about, the problem of inviting people to your home and then you not being there. I can't remember which book it was. He used that imagery, but he said, what if you invited somebody to dinner and when they showed up, you weren't even there? Church invitations can sometimes be like that. We invite people in, but we're not prepared for them. We invite people to come. We haven't thought about their needs, thought about how to serve them necessarily. We haven't treated it as an opportunity for hospitality and creating space for them. But in fact, becoming beloved community is the foundation for welcoming and connecting, because welcoming and connecting ministries and the whole ethos is built on the idea, the fact, the hope that we already have a community of mutuality, right? That we're caring for one another, that we're loving one another, that we're saying each other's names. And a couple of you mentioned that. That's huge. That we see friendly faces. I think maybe, Heidi, the first thing you said was somebody smiled or it was the smiles. Do you know how many times I have visited many different kinds of churches and types of churches and not found someone to smile? It like amazes me. It boggles my mind sometimes to walk in. And I've had it happen here in the diocese as well, to join an in-person worship pre-pandemic, walk in and not be able to get somebody to engage with me, to be interested in engagement with me. And then other times it's been easy. You've walked in and you've realized, wow, these people really, if they're going to do that for me walking in as a stranger, they're going to do it for one another. So as we go on with our hour, we're going to spend some time brainstorming about this. I did want to read a passage to kind of fuel the thought for us. This is Ephesians chapter 4 from the Inclusive Bible. And this is Paul talking to a church about the way that they can be together versus the way they might have been with people before they knew Christ, before the Spirit came into their life. He speaks to them saying this: your mind must be renewed by a spiritual revolution so that you can put on the new self that has been created in God's likeness in the justice and holiness of the truth. Therefore, let's have no more lies. Speak truthfully to each other, for we are all members of one body. When you get angry, don't let it become a sin. Don't let the sun set on your anger, or you will give an opening to the devil. You who have been stealing, stop stealing. Go to work. Do something useful with your hands so you can have something to share with the needy. Be on your guard against foul talk. Say only what will build others up at that moment. Say only what will give grace to your listeners. Don't grieve the Holy Spirit of God, with whom you were sealed for the day of redemption. Get rid of all bitterness, all rage and anger, all harsh words, slander and malice of every kind. In place of these, be kind to one another, compassionate and mutually forgiving, just as God has forgiven you in Christ. Try then to imitate God as beloved children. Walk in love as Christ loved us and offered himself in sacrifice to God for us, a gift of pleasing fragrance. You know, we recognize the end of that passage, right? Because we use that in offertory wording. I wish in church we would more often sometimes say, get rid of all bitterness. When you get angry, because we do, don't let it become a sin. And be on guard against foul talk. Say only what will give grace to your listeners. You know, when we have committed ourselves to this kind of beloved community, to being this kind of community of mutual love and mutual care and service, we are going to naturally become the kind of soil in which people's roots can go deep and go quickly when they come to us. I have often used the image of a sponge. You know, sponges have all those holes so that the water can get in, right? And we know who we are. We have boundaries, but those boundaries need to have holes for people to get into, and so that they can get in with us and really be held by us in that kind of mutual love and concern. So we're coming up on our next breakout group session, and this is when we're going to start some brainstorming. I'm going to have to ask you to do a couple of things as we move into these breakout rooms. I need you to watch and pay attention to your group number, because when we come back, we're going to debrief one group at a time. So watch for your group number. Also, when you get there, choose a scribe who's going to officially be ready when you come back to share with us what you came up with, all right? And I'm going to drop the prompts here. We're going to give you 10 minutes to do this in your group. And you see, here are the prompts. Group number 1. What are ways that a parish community can share life outside the church building? All right. So we're asking you for ways, brainstorm up all the ways you can think about church folks can get together and share life when you're not in your church building, when you're not in a worship service or a class. Group number 2, what are the various kinds of small groups which happen naturally and which we can create in a parish? So group number 2, just start brainstorming. What are all the small groups? What small affinity groups or study groups have you been a part of? How has that worked for you, and what's been best out of it? Group number 3, what are the various worship services and experiences we can offer to our community? What are all the ways that we engage in sacred worship and sacred space with people? In group 4, what are the major life transitions and milestones? And in parentheses, we often say sacraments, but people outside of church don't say that very often, right? What are the milestones and transitions in life that the church tends to support in each other's lives, that we share together and that we mark along our journey alongside each other? Any questions about those? Look good? All right, great. Then we're going to give you a solid 10 minutes. Watch for your group number so you know your group. And then this should remain in chat for you to see, but we'll broadcast it again just in case. And have that scribe ready to go. Thank you, everybody. Everything out of the way for us. Okay. All right. Can everybody see that there? We've got a mind map laid out. I've always liked to say mind map instead of brainstorming. It just sounds a little more calm for me. But group number 1. Yeah. Who was your scribe, and what are ways that a parish community can share life outside of the church building?
Okay. I'm.
Oh, you just muted. No, sorry.
Sorry, there I am.
Yeah.
So I'm going to speak because all I did was list the things as they came up. So that'll get us started. But we started with small groups that originate in the church for whatever reason, but then, develop into going out and doing things in the community, or maybe going out to dinner. Men's breakfasts, doing those off-site, and also having, fellowship opportunities there. And then, of course, infinity groups like book groups and knitters groups and those sorts of things that maybe take trips together. Retreats go out of church and can be a part of the immediate neighborhood or out further to Shrinemont. And then this a very wonderful idea, walking groups during COVID called Walk in Love. I love that idea. Okay. So that's new and original and beautiful. In St. Mark's, we have a theater company for decades, and that used to be a place where parish people did a lot of work outside of church time with theater and competing in DC and all kinds of things involved with theater. And then working with local charities. A member of our group talked about that they would work with charities on this project or that project. And also that they did civic engagement, such as cleanups in their community, which I thought was just wonderful. Picnics outside of the church involved in the community, and partner events with other parishes outside of the church on either issues or a project, potluck luncheons outside of the church. And then this was a really wonderful suggestion. How do we, for these events that we want to invite people who aren't church members, how do we advertise that? Is there some way that we can reach out? Social media, of course, came up, but is there, what are the ways that we can reach out into the community and let people know, here's something fun that we're doing, come join us.
Awesome, thank you. And we'll come back to that advertising question and that question of kind of engagement and getting word out. Thank you, Linnell. Group number 2, what are the various kinds of small groups which can happen naturally and which we create? And there's going to be overlap on these lists, okay? Totally perfect, totally expected. What did our small group number 2 come up with?
So I don't think we elected a scribe, but since I was writing it down, I will just go first and they can throw it all in here.
Awesome.
So some of this is going to spill over or duplicate. Dinner groups, phone trees, the standard choir, altar guild type of groups, lay committees for seminarians, that sort of thing. Garden groups, outreach. We talked about outreach and food banks and those sorts of things. Senior groups, Bible studies, and regular book groups, not Bible necessarily, but other book groups. Prayer groups, be that any kind of prayer groups, especially maybe morning prayer. Social media groups, social participation with social media, and sacred ground.
Oh, good. I'm glad you mentioned that.
That's from our group 2. That's what I had written down. Did I miss anything?
Let's see.
No, I believe you captured it all.
All right, great. Thank you.
We just say EFM too.
Okay, yeah, EFM.
Yeah.
All right. Which has been a great experience. I did not grow up in the Episcopal Church, but I, in my association with parishes around here, spent a great couple of months with the EFM group over at St. John's Norwood, exploring the spiritual exercises and Ignatian spirituality, and just had an absolute blast with folks who were devoted to being together and going deeper. It was super impressive. Thank you. So group number 3, what are various worship services and experiences we can offer to our community? And thank you, Bill, for that. Mm-hmm. Who's going to report for group 3?
I keep forgetting when I move. I get on mute automatically. Okay, that's our group. And,
okay, Catherine, thank you.
Yeah, we started with various forms of, worship, like formal or not, or informal, with music or without music. You can have the worship services at different times. You can have the morning, you can have the evening. Then we went to the open. Somebody mentioned having an open sanctuary, if you can, with people around. That works best in where people are working during the day, where you can make a worship space or just a quiet space available to people so they can get to know the church a little bit. You can use that space to have concerts at noontime or in the evening as people are going home. You can have healing services, and that's used quite a bit. And I know we used to have that at Ascension at noon, and it was at least once a week, and it was very well attended. Then you think of the young people. What do they like? That's mostly shorter ones, or maybe the come as you are services on the evenings in Sunday, where you just drop in and you can just wear whatever you want, and it's a very informal service usually. You can have a service for children just aimed at the kids, and that usually includes the parents too, but it's a lot of fun. You can have a service with dinner afterwards. That was done at Grace. You just have a quick evening Sunday service, and then you'd have a very simple meal downstairs in the Undercroft. And that was quite popular. There's something called Imagine Church. And we talked about that, about how it's a short service, and it's on Facebook, so people can look at it whenever they want to. Okay. And it's not no Eucharist, it's just a short sermon and maybe piano, and it's informally done, and anybody can access it at any time they want. Then there's a possibility of having a labyrinth and introducing people to that. Again, that's not a formal service necessarily, it's more meditation, and that really has a lot of draw.
I can't spell labyrinth.
Labyrinth.
Okay, Lab?
Labyrinth.
Thank you.
Okay. And there's something called...
ashamed of me. I'm sorry, go ahead.
It's easy when you're typing, the spell check does it. There's something called Second Breath, which is a telephone app. And that's a whole nother thing to access all these telephone apps where people can meditate and give parts of services. And then we just ended by talking about the social services you can have, where you introduce people to so like food drives or making sandwiches, and even then have a service maybe afterwards or before, so that they get the idea this is connected. Let's see. Group 3, can you think of anything I skipped?
Catherine, you maybe didn't write this down because you were the one who said it. Evening prayer, Compline, daily office kind of services.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Awesome. And I'm just looking to see if y'all did so much more than I did in my pre-meeting, kind of just imagining. That's fantastic. All right, group number 4. What are the major life transitions and milestones a church family shares and supports in each other's lives?
I'm the scribe for our group. So we started with some of the really biggies, like marriage, baptism, funeral. But we also talked about transitions like graduation. Yeah. So not only blessing people, for instance, as they go off to college, but also welcoming them back. So for instance, including them as maybe at a Christmas service, to maintain that connection. We also talked about when people are leaving the parish, either because they're moving or just they're going to be away for a long time. It might be foreign service or military. Not just blessing them, but having groups of people come up and lay hands on them. We also talked about other groups, like having a scouting Sunday where you celebrate the connection to the scouting group. For instance, we have a Scouts BSA group, and some of them are about to make Eagle Scout. And so that's something that we would celebrate with them. Somebody else talked about a focus on children and families and what's important to them, whatever they want to celebrate. So for instance, a Lego club, where you get you have various levels that you can reach. And so celebrating those kinds of milestones. Someone else talked about sharing how she had healed after a major health event. And that really inspired others who'd all gone through similar kinds of health challenges. And it also inspired the revitalization of a home visit ministry.
Okay. I love it. I love it. I had made some notes. I'm just going to go ahead and add a couple of like birth. You know, we really marked that, additions to families, sacramentally, confirmation. Afterwards, I may kind of line these out in sort of an order because they do kind of go. Any kind of a crisis might be under healing and grieving, but I think we do enter, you know, as like the pandemic, you know, the way that we have journeyed together as communities within the pandemic. And then I would add also vocation, because discernment of gifts and uses within the church community for both lay and ordained, I think is important milestones. We celebrate those, commission those. You mentioned commissioning and laying on hands, I think fits in there. Well, as we look at this, do you see anything missing or something you would want to add? I was trying to grab that to, didn't mean to do that. Get it centered here where we can kind of see, are we missing anything here?
I think blessing the animals, maybe.
Blessing of the animals. Yeah.
There you go. And renewal of wedding vows.
It's true.
That wedding vows, we can put that on transitions and milestones.
Renewal of wedding vows. Yep.
Bring birthdays, maybe.
Thank you. Yes. Birth. And we're going to add that to birth and birthdays. Yeah, this app is pushing me because it doesn't have the built-in autocorrect and spell check. All right, so we got lots of things there. It also doesn't really let me move these where they would fit. It pops them back. You see, okay, we can focus in on that one. How about that one? How about we do that? Worship. Anything we want to add to that real quick before we say good job on it?
We had a special prayer service for a while, and actually I think it's available now through the cathedral. It was a evening yoga service.
Okay.
Notice that you have children's chapel, but we actually once a month do a family service that the children then participate. They're the readers. It's really cool.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, it's very cool.
Awesome. I think we got that filled out. We spent some time on that, adding a couple of things. Small groups, got some overlap and different things here, but yeah, breakfast, cookouts. I really miss. Retreats got mentioned up here in shared life, which is important. I'm just going to back out a little bit. I'm going to get this sent out to everybody so you can see it, okay?
Nice.
You might want to add support groups.
What's that? Oh, support groups.
In small groups.
Yeah, good.
Thank you. I love that. I'm going to send this out. The recap doc is going to be a little bit different this week. It's going to have our notes that we created here, and it's going to have some links and some things. You know, we've talked about them in other sessions before, like how do we prepare greeters? And honestly, I just didn't want to take a lot of time to go over a bullet list on what greeters need to know before they become greeters. But we've got a list of those things, you know. We can do that in online. We can do it offline. We can do it face-to-face. We can do it on Facebook or YouTube. But greeters, you know, there are certain things they need to have account access so they can turn off chat. If things go badly, they need to be prepared with links to these different ministries and things to send people to. In fact, every good greeter online should be dropping half a dozen links before the end of the service. Service bulletins, websites, small group ministries, opportunities, as well as I hopped on this week and just created a really quick contact card out of a Google Doc that you could create, drop a link in. I'm going to include a link to Bitly, which is a website where you can create a short, attractive looking link for it. So you drop that in, and then it's going to track that for you. Also, I will say this, when you're making those contact cards, I remember them as a kid growing up in church, the ones in the pews, the paper ones that asked for our extended family, addressing, blood types. I mean, it was like so amazing the amount of information we were willing to give people when I was a child 50 years ago. Nobody's going to do that today. You ask for a name and an email. Okay. That's pretty much it. If you get much, you might get a phone number out of them if you're offering some amazing text-based thing that no one wants to miss. But let's be real. Younger generations, they don't give up the goods, especially the younger generation. So you shoot for a name and email because you're looking for you're looking for some way to follow up. What I really wanted to do today was just really kind of sit together and imagine and dream up this image of all we do to become beloved community, all the ways that we can do this wherever we're on that continuum. We do these things online. We do them in the emergence phase we're in right now, where some of us are gathering face to face and things are being lifted. And we're definitely going to want to have this kind of daydreaming and this kind of mind mapping in place for our post-pandemic, for our full emergence in the fall when we get there. And what we're going to do is we're going to share this out for everybody with links for some brass tacks things, tools to use to do that. I downloaded an app called Echo Prayer App, which you can find different things to pray about and things to do and watch, but you can actually create a group in that and invite people to that group, and you can share prayer requests around that way. You can use Google Forms to build prayer request things for people to fill out. Again, when you're online, when you're in a hybrid situation, you drop those links, you get people to click on them. It's going to have a couple of notes about things like use registration in your Zoom meeting, and you'll capture emails that way. And you can set it up where people simply have to go through a step of here's my name, here's my email, and it takes them straight into the Zoom room. But you've captured an email that way, whereas they might just come and go and you not have captured it. A couple of different things you can do. You can use Eventbrite and Meetup to capture people's information and have and maintain that contact with them. We're going to put those details in, but they really pale in comparison to this example of the question is being asked again and again in every meeting I go to. How are we going to make community when this is all over? How are we making community right now? And the truth is we know the answer because God's been moving in us to do this already. And we just need to not forget in the hustle and bustle, in the ebb and flow, that the sea is still the sea, right? We're still God's people. And I wanted to end, we got a couple of minutes over and I appreciate you hanging with me. I went back and was reading through some Howard Thurman the last couple of days. And one of his things that stuck with me, the first time I ever read it, I was like, I wrote it on my whiteboard in my office the first time I read it because I said, this is huge. He's not talking about welcoming and connecting people. He's not talking about churches where doing it or anything, but he's talking about where hate comes from. And he said that hate grows out of something that he called contact without fellowship. Contact that is devoid of any primary overtures of warmth and fellow feeling and genuineness. And that is one of the most important things he has ever said to me, that I have got to remember this is not a process. This is not a program. This is not just making contact, but this is in fact genuinely, humbly, with hospitality, loving the people that we come into contact with, becoming a community, a beloved community, which can make new friends when they meet us in the most genuine and loving ways. So I give you that for this week. I thank you for your time. I thank you for your insights and for your lists. That is 3 times the amount that I came up with, really stretching myself yesterday. So I'm going to get that cleaned up a little bit, sent out to you. It's going to have the links and things. And I look forward to seeing you next week as we gather around uplifting and inviting worship. And really going to continue this theme. So thank y'all.